2021-306, an ordinance authorizing a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $1,200,903.18 to provide funds to assist in the Salvation Army in operating a safety net shelter for the next 24 months, with a grant agreement for 50% and a CDBG subrecipient agreement for 50% of the requested appropriation for the Office of Planning and Economic Development.
Mr. Chair, I move to hold this in committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Chair, sorry, we're going to have any discussion opportunity on this one?
Okay.
It's an ordinance before the committee, and I know we have someone who signed up to speak tonight.
I would say that we need to hold this because I think that.
I'm not arguing with the holding. I'm just asking, since we have someone from the Continuum of Care who signed up to speak, I'd like to.
That's fine. I'm good with it, but I think they need to discuss it among themselves first and really come up with the plan and then come back and discuss it. But that's fine. We can do it.
I think we need a motion to discuss that.
Motion for discussion, please. Thank you.
I'm going to vote no.
If we could have Josh Sabo come to the podium.
Wait a minute. I think we need to pass that motion, but I'm going to vote no on the motion. I think that I agree with Alderman Gregory. It's in his ward, and he wants the interested persons to sit down and discuss something and bring us something tangible for the city council to talk about. So
we vote on this discussion or movement? Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right.
Against? Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I won't take up too much of your time, but my name is Josh Sabo, and I'm the coordinator of the Heartland Continuum of Care. And I want to start by saying we're grateful that the city of Springfield is willing to consider an investment of $1.2 million in our system to address homelessness. A strategic investment of that size could have a significant impact toward functionally ending homelessness in our community. Earlier this year, the Heartland Continuum of Care put together a formal work group to develop a short-term strategy, and that work began to start to lay out some immediate steps we could take while we also develop a long-term strategy to address homelessness. And I'm excited to say that long-term planning process has already begun with review of our local data. We'll begin assembling the steering committee that will guide that process. And in the coming weeks, interviews and focus groups will begin. We expect that'll happen in August. So that continues to move forward, and we're grateful for the city's support in making that possible. This long-term planning is incredibly important, and it'll begin to inform our decision-making in the next 6 months on the issue of homelessness. But while that work is underway, there are key short-term strategy improvements we can make with confidence. Investing in appropriate amounts of supportive housing are never a bad idea. I know you've heard about that several times, specifically rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. A lot of our conversation as a community revolves around emergency shelter, and that's often the case in communities that have not adequately invested in supportive housing. Expanding shelter alone, though, creates a scenario where our system to address homelessness is stuck due to a lack of appropriate supportive housing. Our continuum continues to support the need for an overflow shelter alongside the expansion of supportive housing interventions. And with that in mind, in the ordinance before you, we did not have the opportunity to be involved in the development of this ordinance, and significant questions remain about what exactly is being proposed. In meeting with the Salvation Army and our Continuum Board today, there is unanimous support for encouraging you to hold this ordinance in committee while the Heartland Continuum of Care works collaboratively with the Salvation Army to bring a proposal before you. We plan to have that proposal to you by the end of next week, a proposal that we believe will most acutely address the local needs we have. Thank you.
Sure.
Alderman Redpath and Alderman Thomas.
Well, I guess my question is does your plan fall in line to using this facility if that's what, I mean, have you talked to the city?
Right. I mean, we have talked with Salvation Army. We've been a part of earlier conversations with the city. It's just the specific details of how this ordinance took shape. That part of it we've not.
So it's not necessarily that you're opposed to this?
We're not opposed to overflow shelter,
okay.
Certainly not. We're not opposed to working with Salvation Army. Again, they were a part of that conversation today.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Josh, thanks for coming in tonight.
Sure.
This is obviously an issue that actually does impact the entire city. And one of the things that we asked you, although you weren't here last week,
sure.
was for that data. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to ask you about in our open session was, are you able to get us data on who is unsheltered in Springfield and what those needs are? Is that the kind of information that you're going to be looking at to shape your proposal?
Yeah, I mean, we can provide, especially from our point in time count, we can give you a snapshot of that year by year. Our housing outreach team continues to work to create a list of people who are unsheltered. We won't have, named data on that, but we'll be able to give you an approximate idea of how many people are unsheltered, as well as how many shelter beds are available. How that might work together is certainly a part of the proposal we'll bring to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Alderman Proctor.
I'd just like to make a point of clarification from what Alderman McMiniman said about this being in Alderman Gregory's ward. It's in fact in Ward 5. So I don't know if that changes anything, but I just want to make that.
Hey, help me out anytime you're ready. I mean,
I don't know if that helped yet or not. I don't know. But I would like to be part of the conversation to learn more about what's going on. Because I think you guys are doing a great. I know Erica, we're meeting tomorrow, Val and everybody. So I look forward to having those discussions and look forward to moving the ball forward on this.
Thank you.
Alderwoman DeSenza.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Josh, for being here.
Sure.
And you are working with the Salvation Army. You're having
Correct.
those conversations.
Yeah.
And you did meet today.
Yes.
And everyone's on the same page that they want this held until a more detailed plan comes forward,
Yes.
correct? Okay. Just wanted to emphasize that
Yeah.
part of the conversation. Thank you.
Alderman Donovan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep my comments very short. Mr. Sabo, I appreciate you coming here this evening, and we've said time and time again that we would like to rely on the experts and the fact that you've been proactive, already reached out to the Salvation Army. You think you can come up with a plan next week? I think that's wonderful. Again, I appreciate whoever was involved in getting this conversation started in July rather than September, October. That's good to hear we're making progress, so thank you.
Sure. Yeah, and the Continuum began this conversation in February in a formal way. And so really what we'll bring to you next week is not something we're coming up with in 7 days. It's something we've been working on for 6 months.
Well, that's good to know, too. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman McMiniman.
So, Josh, the ball is now in your court. We're expecting you to come up with something
Absolutely.
that can get a good vote out of everybody, including the Salvation Army, including the mayor, and a viable plan, because we want it as soon as possible, because we want a location that those that are on the unsheltered streets can get to a place as soon as possible. So good luck with your efforts, and hope to get us there.
Absolutely.
Alderman Gregory.
So we definitely had a meeting yesterday. That's why I really didn't want to get into discussion, because we had a meeting where everybody was supposed to be there and have a discussion on how we move forth. But for whatever reason, whatever, everybody has a problem with the mayor. Nobody wants to meet with the mayor on a problem that you guys are going to need the city support on. So that's what's making this process difficult. I spoke on this in January about the need for it. And now that we're here, fine, everybody's got an idea how to handle it best. It's in everybody's ward now. And that's fine. I'm glad we're here and everybody wants to fix this, but we need to all work together, and whatever little stuff, it just needs to stop, because we're not going to get anywhere. And I believe in you and your leadership for this continuum of care. But the way this thing is going, it sucks. It's terrible. As a new guy in politics, this whole situation, how we doing this sucks. I'm very frustrated with it, and I hope when we come back, we have a really, really good plan. Our community, Ward 2, has really dealt with the brunt of this for a very long time, and I want to move forward from it. I want to help people do it. But the way it's going right now, we're just going to keep doing this circle, unless I think the Salvation Army is in the continuum of care, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. They should probably be sitting there with you.
They are. They were part of those conversations today, and I absolutely understand your frustration about the meeting that took place yesterday, and I hope you can understand on our end as well, the time to collaborate on this is not a week after it's surprisingly emerged.
And I get that. So if we can't make it yesterday to talk with the mayor and everybody else, but we can make it tonight and talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just,
yeah.
That's why I didn't want to really have this conversation tonight, because I really truly felt like that it's not on us. It's on a continuum to fix it, and we're going to put the money behind whatever you guys are thinking that needs to be done best. I'm fully with that.
And that's what we're here to ask for, Alderman, truly. Thank you.
Alderman Williams.
Yes. Was there anybody missing from the meeting today?
From the Continuum Board?
Yes.
Yeah,
the meeting that
there
you
were,
had.
right, yeah, there was about 1/3 of the board that was missing.
No, I'm speaking of the agencies that are involved in putting this plan together. And the entities.
Right, all the agencies that have been a part of that short-term working group were there as part of that conversation today.
Okay. No one was missing? No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Well, thanks, Josh, for coming up, and I think everybody's on the same page where direction we should take. I think it's how do you get there, and really for us as a city, and everybody knows this, the gap of housing are people on the streets. So I know people soften it by the unsheltered. I call it street homeless because that's first and foremost in everybody's mind, and that's what we have to prioritize. I was on the phone with HUD today, and they said that's how you get priority funding, is by housing the ones on the street, the hardest to house. And so that's the direction we need to go, and it has to be with supportive services. So the $1.2 million, everybody gets caught up on the facilities, which I understand, and the option we have right now is the adult rehab center. It was used for that purpose, but the whole process is the safety net program, or whatever we want to call it. We can call it overflow, but really, how do we get the individuals off the streets and into supportive housing? Rapid rehousing, I'm all for it, but you have to have the supportive services. So I don't care if the $1.2 million is used for the supportive services. When Mercy Communities did the walkthrough, I thought that was very important. The individuals that went through it, they talked that they're ready for rapid rehousing. Where they lack resources is the program part, the supportive services. And we heard Penny Harris up here, Penny Powell, and others up here about the need to support the services. So everybody around the horseshoes should understand this is, I don't care what it takes. We heard businesses talk about it. Everybody talks about it. The time for action's now. And that's why we brought the ordinance forward with regards to that. And I said this in the meeting yesterday, two things. One was we have to have a homeless outreach services team that includes all the available resources from mental health experts, our own that we're funding. It'd be a qualified civilian. If police need to be called into that process or whatever that outreach services team is on a daily basis to create the profile that you're working towards, the app. I think that's the platform you're working towards, which was proposed previously, which is good because it hopefully it integrates into the HMIS system so everybody's on the same page. And when you're out there on the streets, you know the individuals by name. And then if someone doesn't come into the shelter, especially in the winter, if it's the overflow shelter, then they can say, oh, Jane Smith's missing. Where's she at? And where's her normal hangouts? Things of that nature. So we start building the relationships person by person and moving them up that supportive housing ladder. But it has to have the support services. So, if Ivan said, at the meeting yesterday, we'd put up $2 million. The county should put up $1 million. Capital Township should put up $1 million. And there's other funders that can put up the money. And so it's a matter of how do we, now's the time to do it because everybody's talking about American Rescue Plan dollars. We have CDBG funds, home funds. Now's the time to make it happen. So we should be able to get there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's why we come forward at this point because, we're working in that direction. There's no such thing as rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing without supportive services. Those are a part of those programs. And the issue that we run into year over year, we create more emergency shelter. Emergency shelter does not end homelessness. It's an important intervention. It can keep people safe in the midst of a cold winter or a hot summer. But we don't end homelessness without more supportive housing like rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. So as we put together this proposal, these are exactly the sort of things that we'll string together for you and tell you what results can come from that. In terms of an outreach team, we have a housing outreach team with the police, with behavioral health, with several agencies that are already a part of that are doing that work. So a lot of those pieces are already in place. The issue for us as a community is how do we continue to invest in those and build on those. There's a lot of great work happening, but there's also a lot of under-resourced parts of our crisis response system. But with what you're saying, we can get there. That's exactly what Erica said last week as well. It's not unattainable for us as a community. With this long-term plan, with these short-term next steps, there are significant ways we can move forward right now.
Thank you.
It's good to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.